Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us in this very special episode today. I'm so excited that I get to interview you today, Maria Emmerich. Thank you so much for accepting my invite.
Oh, well, it was an honor. We didn't have a lot of time to chat on the show because I was like in the kitchen cooking all the time. So
Right.
when I started seeing like your passion for carnivore and how to do it, I was like, oh my gosh, we are the same. I was like so
Yeah.
excited. And
Yeah.
then you reached out and I was like, this is great.
I'm so glad we get to share that there's a lot of us that are working, like we were talking off camera. We're working with people one-on-one on a daily basis, and we're seeing the toll it's taking. This idea that calories don't matter, eat all you want, and just later on you will naturally regulate, and just the natural regulation never happens. Another thing is that outside of us working one-on-one, we have the same background. We've both struggled with with weight gain and struggled a lot with that. So I think that gives us a different way of looking at it.
That and you are my height. A lot of the people that are saying eat whatever you want until you're or eat all the fatty meat, they're about a foot and a half taller than us. I
Mm.
feel like a midget when we were on that TV show. So I
Right,
think
right, right.
that has a lot to do with it. We
Right.
both struggled with weight. Some of them never had a weight problem. And
That's
yeah,
huge. When you don't go through the weight gain thing, when you don't have the genetics for it, it's so difficult to relate. It's so hard to understand what we're trying to say. It's like, it's not that easy. Do you think I didn't try to eat everything I wanted? Like, that's the easy way out. We've all kind of tried it. It just doesn't work.
it doesn't work. And when people are mentioning how, yes, you need to like heal the body, healing doesn't happen when your blood sugars are going higher, when you're gaining weight, that's the opposite of what you want to do. And I understand that weight loss isn't everything, but when most people that are coming to us are 100, 200, even 50 pounds overweight with, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, to reverse that, you need to shrink the fat cells. That is like step number one. Shrink the fat cells and gain muscle. That's what you and I both preach. And I just felt like you and I were a little bit more, maybe not so loud. And I don't know, I just left that show feeling a little defeated because I don't think our message got out there as much.
Right. And for people who are watching this and who don't know the background, the show that we were on was the first kind of like official TV show in the carnivore diet called Reverse TV. And it was about the carnivore diet, and we were trying to do like an intervention with guests when we were the experts, and a lot of big names in the carnivore community were there, and yeah, so what happened is there was a little bit of friction, right, between you and certain other info. I don't know if you want to say
That's okay. He
yeah,
doesn't probably care.
right. And it's just like a difference, I guess, in the approach. I think you and I focus a lot on tracking and the importance of tracking. And by the way, I've had clients who didn't want to track usually, and they could. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but that's usually when they have hundreds of pounds to lose. Any shift might help. Eventually, even they get a point where, okay, now if you want to push past that, now it's really important that we track. And so you and I really share, I think, this message that it's just so much easier if you know exactly how much calories you're eating, how much food you're eating. In an instant, you'll figure out why you haven't been losing weight. When I made that post on Instagram the other day about priming makes you
Loved
fat
it.
and sick. Thank you. I got so many comments, people saying, yeah, I've been doing carnivore for years, never lost an ounce, or, maybe it's time to change. And it's like, why wait years? If it's been a month or 2 or 3 weeks and you haven't dropped body fat, what you're doing is not working. It's time to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, you and I both get people that have tried it and they're gaining weight. Like I have a couple in particular that have gained, 20, 30, 40 pounds. And I'm like, at what point there's no way I would get up to 40 pounds trying to do this diet. I would be like, what?
Right.
No, something is not right.
Right.
Um,
And
so
I think it's probably because they believe in the message so much, and there's like, it's okay, be patient, be patient. And it's like when you gain body fat, you're going in the opposite cycle of momentum. Momentum is so fickle, and then it makes you feel more depressed. When you're depressed, how likely are you to not engage in addictive foods? Right?
Totally. I mean, okay, talking about food addiction, I liked how you said that it will never be in the dictionary. However, we understand we've all been there. Most of us have been there in that addictive state. And you can be addicted to food, the butter and the ribeye, like you can be addicted to that. And
Yes.
there comes to be a part where it's hard to stop eating. I think this is why some people really love, long-term fasting. Not that I recommend that, but because they don't know what to eat and they can't stop once they start. And so they like to just
Mm.
not eat anything, which I'm not saying that's the answer either.
No, it's funny you mention it. Yesterday, I made a post on fasting because I wrote a whole guide on reverse dieting, right? And the whole idea of reverse dieting is to speed up your metabolism by eating more and strength training and all that kind of stuff. And so the whole post was about how fasting is going to slow down your metabolism because this is what happens if you are a prisoner of war or you're caught in famine. You're fasting. And so, how can you survive a famine after such a long time? It's happened over and over again in history. Our bodies have adapted to conserve energy and to slow down the metabolism the moment it senses a disparity between calories out versus calories in. And it's just trying to keep you alive. And it's only been in the last maybe 100 years or so where it's caloric surplus that is the thing that humans have been facing and dealing with. And our genes haven't caught up yet to adapt to this new reality. And so, fasting is going to slow down your metabolism, right? And so I'm not bashing fasting. I think fasting is great for so many reasons, like maybe autophagy.
Yeah, but you can get that through exercise. Just saying.
Yeah, that too. Thank you for adding that in. Yes. So it might have other potential benefits, but if we're just talking weight loss, I don't think fasting is the way to do it. You lose muscle, you can't get enough protein. I mean, just so many things that occur.
Right. And I don't know if you're familiar. I am a big fan of protein sparing modified fasting, where you at least get enough protein in for the day. And
Yeah.
this is in exchange for a water fast only.
Mhm.
So I'm not saying you do this every day. And if you do venture into doing something like this, I always recommend an overfeeding day
Mm.
through that week. And that is so you don't have that metabolic adaptation. So
Got
that's
it.
where I do want to, like, because everybody's like, oh, Maria, she always recommends protein sparing modified fasting, which I don't. It's for those certain people that are, very metabolically damaged and stuck and nothing's working. And
Yes.
that was me. I was very stuck. Everybody thought it was so easy for me to be thin, and it wasn't.
Right. I believe in that so much. As long as you're getting the protein, it's gonna spare. That's why it's called protein sparing,
Yep.
right? It's also gonna spare your muscles.
Yeah.
One of the main elements of maintaining or even speeding up a metabolism is getting enough protein. Protein in and of itself is anabolic. It sends the right hormonal signal to the body to conserve muscle and to not lose the muscle, even if you are in a caloric deficit.
Yeah. The Dr. Ted Neiman, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but
Of
he
course.
says like protein calories really don't count because they're going to build so many parts of your body. And, when you eat 100 calories of protein, you really only net like 65, 70,
True.
just because there's that thermic effect of food that's going on.
Exactly. Your body actually spends a ton of calories to metabolize, digest, break down, and store and utilize the protein and the amino acids that you're consuming. I love that. Um, have, Let me ask you, I've been wanting to ask you this. So I've seen videos on your YouTube channel with Halle Berry cooking. Can you share a little bit more about that experience?
So, when I first wrote my cookbook, it was to raise money for our adoption. And I never thought that I didn't even know if anybody was going to buy it or read it or, I just put it out there just to help because I was so desperate. My husband lost his job and we had nothing. And to hear that people really enjoyed it and, like, oh my gosh, we can eat these really healthy, my favorite foods just in a different way, like cinnamon rolls or whatever. And then all of a sudden, not just Halle Berry, but other celebrities were messaging me that they had my books. And I was like, what? This was on Instagram. I was like, oh my gosh, is this really her? And then we just started talking and my boys even sent her a letter to, kind of like why we it's so important to us. And we just became friends. And she's like, hey, you want to do some videos? And I'm like, yeah, I do, and
Wow.
she's just so nice. And what was funny is the first thing I cooked for her was this protein pudding that's made from hard-boiled eggs. And when she found out what it was made from, she's like, I am not eating that. And it took a while for her to actually try it. But then when she did, she was like, this is the best chocolate mousse ever. And
Nice.
it's just
Because
really cool.
she was
But she does,
keto. Yeah.
what's that?
Because she was keto. That I think that's why she gravitated towards your keto cookbooks, right? She has type 1 diabetes from a very young age, and so she's been doing keto for a long time.
Yeah, and she does prioritize protein for sure. Like that, she's more towards, because sometimes people are like, well, do carnivore stuff with her. And I was like, well, she's more towards the lean fish and the vegetables, and
Yeah.
which is just fine because diet is all about compliance. And whatever is going to work for you, like if you're going to stick to it, that's why people are like, well, if you're carnivore, why do you write recipes for chocolate pudding? It's like,
Right.
first of all, it's all about compliance. And if you would have told me, I started the ketogenic diet when I was 16 because I had PCOS and all these things. And if someone would have said you only can eat meat, I wouldn't have even tried. And I would still be that overweight, unhappy person with PCOS because that just didn't seem like reality to me. And so for me, I always tell people, you are going to evolve and change and get better at your diet. You don't have to stick with just one thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree with that, especially given that I work with people one-on-one, and similar to you, I reflect on my own journey. I hope you are enjoying this interview so far. To help you on your fitness journey, check out my weight loss and addiction guides, Dopamine Body and Dopamine Brain. They're going to help you lose the weight, and then the dopamine brain is going to help you actually adhere to the diet by learning how to manipulate your baseline level of dopamine so that you are not craving and vulnerable to binge or go back to your prior eating habits. Also, if what you're doing has stopped working and you're hitting a plateau, there is a very easy way to counter that. Check out my reverse dieting guide called SUPERBREED Metabolism. That's right, you can really supercharge your metabolism, but it's not in the way that you think. It's not about eating all you want all at once. You have to earn that right, and there's a very specific way that you do that, by which you slowly but surely increase and increase and increase your metabolism to the point where you break out of that plateau and you can go back to losing weight. Also, if you just got out of a dieting phase, do not go back to maintenance calories very quickly. You have to go through a reverse dieting phase. That is the missing secret. And when people don't do that, they regain the weight and you end up yo-yo dieting all your life, losing weight, and then gaining it all back. And so the SUPERBREED Metabolism Guide is the ultimate secret that you may not have heard about just yet. All right, now back to the podcast. I didn't go like right away into carnivore. I was doing paleo for a while, then keto for a while, and then when I started learning about carnivore, I still remember I was doing social media a lot. I would have stories where I'm cooking a steak. I'm like, am I really doing just meat? Who am I? Like, is this really happening? It's such a rough, hard thing for me to do, given my background as a classically trained dietitian, brainwashed, fruits and vegetables. It was a lot more difficult for me to make that transition.
Yeah, that does make sense. And like everything they taught us in school about nutrition was just lies. And it is the university where I graduated from. They knew I spoke at a lot of events, and this was maybe 5 years ago. They asked me to speak at the university, and I called them and I said, well, I want you to know what I'm going to speak about is exactly opposite of what you're teaching them in the classes.
And
And
what was, yeah.
they asked me to not speak. And I said, that's totally okay. I didn't want to get there and make anybody upset or like make a big uproar. So the fact that they realized, like, I don't think they knew what I was going to speak about, because by then I was pretty far into the carnivore space because of my husband's, Lyme disease and all the things. So
Oh, okay. Can you share a little bit? I've probably seen a post or two about that, but I don't know, like, if you've shared more information, like what has happened?
might cry a little bit.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So, I think it was about 13 years ago now. He kind of blamed his pain on an old football injury. He played football,
Okay.
and he had a really bad accident when he was in football, like really, really bad. So he thought the pain that he had was just from that. And I was like, dude, you're in your 40s and you can barely walk. Like, you need to figure this out.
Oh,
And so he did a Lyme disease test, and a traditional Lyme blot test is 90% inaccurate. So you can ask any veterinarian that tests animals and stuff, it always says they don't have it. So I think it was a blessing that my publisher who published my books, he said, well, Maria, the traditional Lyme blot test is not very accurate. I suggest an IGeneX test. And so he went and got an IGeneX, because I talked all the time to my publisher. He was an amazing man. He himself had Lyme disease real bad, and he was a jujitsu master. So he was one of the most fit person ever. He got Lyme disease and he was bedridden. And he's just kind of the same as my husband. And sure enough, he had Lyme disease real bad. And he had Bartonella and all these other Babesia, these other things that go on with Lyme disease. We live in Wisconsin, and like there's ticks everywhere, what sometimes
thought
I
you
do.
were in Hawaii. Wait.
We live in Hawaii in the wintertime.
Oh, okay.
But our families live in Wisconsin, so we do go back in the summer, and it's beautiful except for the ticks. And so by the time he found out what he had, that's when he started into carnivore, because a lot of, the oxalates and things would cause pain. But he's like, it's just never going away. I don't understand. And so it turns out he has something called ankylosing spondylitis.
Mm,
So the Lyme disease caused his immune system to be so weak that it caused ankylosing spondylitis, is where like the joints calcify and turn to bone, and so he can't move very well. So it's just been a very hard, long journey. And I just get a little frustrated when people will say, carnivore reverse my Lyme disease, or just eat carnivore and it will reverse all autoimmune disease, because it's not going to.
no.
His is not an autoimmune response from food. His immune response is from an external source. It was a tick. And
Mm,
so, yes, carnivore, he eats that way because it helps manage his pain. If he does get like coleslaw or something, someone put coleslaw on his burger when, we eat burgers without the patties, and he had some coleslaw and he was in pain for like days. So little things like that. I mean, I can see it, how it changes him. For me, it wouldn't be a big deal for me to eat that, right? But I
yeah.
do know where the nutrients are. I know where the anti-nutrients are. I know how I feel great and stuff. But for him, it's definitely kind of a bedridden state or not. So
Very
that's
interesting. Yeah,
that's our
I'm so sorry you're dealing with that. It is so frustrating given that mainstream medicine is so ill-equipped in dealing with those kinds of issues that are becoming more and more common. I feel like we're hearing more and more about these kinds of things that are just chronic,
yeah.
Um, and thank you for sharing that, with us. Have you looked into regenerative, medicine? Like, I've been following the work of Dr. Adil Khan. He is becoming very
Oh, stem
famous.
cell?
The stem cell guy,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
we did. So I did actually go and get stem cells, because he's tried everything. Let me tell you, he's done everything. And I said, I want you to do stem cells. He's like, you go, tell me what it's like. And so I went to CPI stem cell in Mexico,
Okay.
and I talked to the doctor, and he was straight up with me. He's like, it's not going to help him. He said stem cells doesn't seem to do a lot with Lyme, or he's like, it can help with autoimmune issues,
Mm,
but he's like, he was very open. He's like, I don't know if it's going to help. I don't think so. But he suggested something else at the time, and I can't remember. This was about a year ago. It was right before that carnivore show.
right.
So he suggested something else, and we looked into it. He does an oxygen therapy, what am I trying to say? Hyperbaric oxygen chamber. He
Yes.
does that every day, and that's what really helps with the pain.
Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But I
Um,
even looked into like peptides, BPC 157, all the things. thymosin alpha-1, and that never helped him. And are you familiar with Herxing?
Yeah, the Herxheimer reactions. Yeah,
He has that whenever he does peptide, and it just makes him so much pain. It's hard for me to even suggest him to keep trying,
I
you know?
see.
So
I see. Yeah. Well, I hope, the solution is, right around the corner. I feel like breakthroughs are happening all the time, especially like, with the AI and super intelligent. We're on the cusp of super intelligence whereby we can run through data sets a lot faster. And as long as we're breathing, there's hope. There's always gonna be a breakthrough, I feel like. And it just looking at the history and throughout history it's always gotten in the right direction, and now it's just speeding up more and more and more and more. And so that's also what I tell my clients, because I also get people who gravitate towards carnivore, they have complex cases, so and I'm sure it's similar with you, right? Like we get the harder cases to crack, and sometimes diet, like you said, it's just not enough. It's not the
it's
only.
not I mean, some people get hard on me because I do believe in supplements. I don't know how you feel about them, but when you have like hormonal imbalance and all the things, yes, food is going to make you feel better, but it's not going to reverse certain things. And especially like there's some people out there that believe like just eat carnivore and a stick of butter a day and you won't go through menopause. Like what? Like
No, no,
that's
no. That's funny. Yeah.
that is funny.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
laughing about. And where
Yeah.
these very popular people on YouTube saying like you don't need to have like HRT when it comes to when you go through menopause. It's like you are going to lose bone mass. You're going to have like women die of heart disease. That's the number one killer. And estrogen keeps your what am I trying to say? Your arteries nice and flexible. And when you don't have that, they're very stiff. And a stick of butter a day is not going to change that.
Not at all. See, I didn't know there are people who are saying do not even go into HR. You have to tell me later off camera. I don't like to name names because,
No.
for me, it's all about providing value, because that's what our audience wants. They just want, what is the answer? They don't care about like, if there is any competition, or is like they said
No,
that, or they attacking, like that's the last thing I care about.
right. No, no, no. We're like, here's the thing about even like high fat carnivore. When you get off of processed food, that is a win, right? And you like all the things, the processed food and stuff. And that's why they feel better. And that's why they probably stick with it until they're, you
Yeah,
know, overweight, 40 pounds overweight because they felt better, which is
right.
still a win. But we just have this huge epidemic of obesity, like especially after COVID. I think we're in 70% that people are overweight or obese.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's just a very sad state that we're in. So I think
Yeah.
people are just desperate.
Every semester, I finally quit Miami-Dade. So I was teaching at Miami-Dade
Oh,
College. Yay, I'm so happy. Thank you, everybody, for supporting our brands, helping us pay the bills. I don't have to teach. Not, and it was great to be teaching, but at some point it's like you're just repeating the same things, and I'd rather take that time and instead write and research for new guides and put out new information that's also helping me grow and helping me offer more value. But anyway, when I would be teaching every semester, I'd show my students the CDC prevalence of obesity maps, and you can see it's just so alarming every single year. They publish them around like the end of the summer. Around September is when they put out the new maps. It's constantly getting worse and worse and worse. And I think like last year or the year before that, it was like the first time they keep creating new categories of like more than 40% of that state's population is obese, not just overweight,
well,
obese.
yeah.
It's
That's
insanity. Yeah. And yeah.
yeah. I was just gonna say, and that's why, if you in the United States in particular, on the show, you probably saw people were picking on me for my size. And what
Yes,
was
I
funny,
am so sorry. That was bullying, straight up bullying. I cannot even imagine anybody like you look fantastic, great skin,
you're very,
lean, and it's like just what, like 1 or 2 pounds is like if you had 1 or 2 extra pounds that would make them happier. Like I just don't understand it. And even if they had any sort of feeling around that, Why would you say that out publicly and bashing somebody publicly like that?
You know, I was called thunder thighs when I was a teenager and it hurt. And that hurt just as much when they were doing that. And I was dealing with so much with my family at that time. I probably was focusing on, my husband more than myself at that point. So maybe it opened my eyes to, hey, I'm going to start lifting weights again. And I did and all that. But what was funny is there was a lot of comments that said, hey, I live in Korea and you look just like us.
Right. Right.
So, and that, like someone else personally messaged me and they're like, in Europe, you look like us, or, this and that. So I thought it was a little interesting that people mainly in the United States had an issue with my size. And instead of being like, hey, is everything okay? Or whatever, they were just mean.
Right. People are mean. I've noticed the more social media I do, it's like we're in high school, you know? The
You're
bullying.
so brave. Like you are brave. Like I look up to your confidence and like you put yourself out there and you're like, hey, take me or leave me. And I'm like,
Thank you.
she's the best.
Thank you so much. And it's not easy. It's
No.
not easy. I have days where I'm down on myself. I'm like, maybe I should like separate and just put like all the science stuff in one thing and my music and my modeling pictures. And I'm like, but then that means I'm like canceling part of who I am. And
Yeah.
I don't feel good doing that.
No, because your message will come through in a different way. There's already science out there. There's already the modeling out there. For you, you're combining how beauty and science come together.
Yeah. And it's so hard for people to accept that because usually if you put out a picture in a bikini, like right away, it's like you're more than just a body. Like, but then they can't like I'll still get some of those comments, but at the same time, it eats them up because at the same time I'm a PhD. So it's like I'm certifiably smart. And so
Right, right.
they choke on that, they don't know what to do with it. Uh,
They,
it's funny. But yeah, I thank you so much. This means so much to me because I was thinking the exact same thing like the other day, and I was thinking, you know what, this is a strength in my brand. It's like, how many people do you see out there that are not afraid, that just show everything, that this is me. I love fashion, I love beauty, I love music, and also I'm a nerd. This is me too. Like, and I'm just, it's rare to find that combination.
yeah, so just let it shine. Just,
I appreciate it so much.
yeah.
Thank you. I want to circle back to what you said. It was so important, the HRT and it's like carnivore doesn't cure aging. Wouldn't it be great if it did?
I think it
Right?
makes, like obviously getting rid of the sugar is going to help with the ages of your skin, so it helps in some ways, but it's not going to stop it.
Yeah. I think what happens is people look into it as a solution for everything. It's
Mm.
like it's like almost like a cultish behavior. It's like I'm gonna enter the carnivore community and I'm gonna believe that it is the cure for everything and nothing else that's unnatural. I'm gonna start attacking everything that is unnatural. Like I'm sure you get those comments too. It's like, oh, is makeup primal or is makeup carnivore? And they're doing it over their phones with all the blue light and the EMF. The moment you remind them, hey, like it's just as toxic as your phone, you never get a response back.
No, no, yeah, someone was picking on me for the sauna blanket that I recommended, and they're
Yeah.
like, I tested it and all the EMFs that come out, and I was like, well, the phone that you're using is not free of EMF either. Like,
Right, right.
oh, we just,
It's yeah, it's like it's a sort of like reductionist thinking where and it's a sort of laziness too, because if you believe like it's just carnivore is gonna be curing everything, you don't have to work hard on all the other aspects of your health or life in general, right? We cannot just go back to living in the forest. We left nature for a reason. you
yes,
know, there's
good.
right.
That's why, like one of the doctors on the show we were on too, he used to hate exercise and he would always make fun of me for being a runner and this and that. And now he's kind of changing his tune to realizing that there's a lot of benefits to, he's a very active doctor, like he's always on his feet and stuff, but most people are sitting in a car, driving to work, sitting at a desk, like there comes a point where we need to get our butts off the couch and move our body because we don't live in the forest anymore. So sure, if you want to call it exercise or just activity of life, whatever you want to call it, we need to start moving our body.
It's evolutionary compatible, right? Like we throughout history had to keep on moving just to be alive, just to survive, right? So our genetics are geared to thrive under those conditions. This is
Yeah.
why getting a treadmill with a desk or like I just moved my desk bike, but like I'm always doing either one.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't do that and you just work out 1 hour a day, the studies are clear. You have the same rate of disease as a smoker.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
It is wild, but this is why I tell people, instead of, going to the gym after work and getting takeout because you didn't have time to cook dinner, go to the grocery store, walk around, get your groceries, cook dinner, turn some music on, dance, right? And you're probably going to enjoy it way more than running on a treadmill.
Yeah.
And you just kind of keep that habit going, and that active moving of more than just, a few minutes on the treadmill is going to be
Yeah.
much more
Yeah.
advantageous than, I don't know.
So true. What would your advice be to people that are listening to us, given that we are approaching, we're suggesting a completely different framework within carnivore, or within as close to carnivore that you can be. What would your advice be to people who are listening and they want to lose weight? Because I feel like our biggest strength is helping people lose weight while also being healthy. Um, some like main tips that you can give them.
Um, the first one might be a little bit different than what they thought I'd be. It's not about food, it's about sleep. If you are getting up extra early to work out, that's not what I want you to do either. I want you to make sure you prioritize sleep. Sleeping at least 8 hours is great for, like you mentioned, skin earlier. It's great for your mental health. It's great for cravings, like even your blood sugar and everything. So even I'm usually to bed quite early, but because I'm an early bird. But if we have a party or wedding where I'm out late, I still get up early because I just love the mornings. I posted on my Instagram stories today, the moonlight. It was like a full moon and it went down over the ocean today. It was just so beautiful. But always prioritizing sleep. Oh, so I was going to say, if I don't get my sleep in the next day, I'm like a bottomless pit. Even if I'm
Yeah.
eating the same foods that I have I'm kind of like a dog. I can eat the same thing, but I want more of it because my blood sugars are out of control. So whether you have type 2 diabetes or not, sleep is really important for getting the cravings and hunger to a normal, like we talk about uh not insulin resistance, leptin
Yep.
resistance. A lot of it has to do with not sleeping,
So true.
so that would be number one. Number two is prioritizing protein, so protein is the macro that you always have to hit. And then I usually give you fat and carb macros, which you always can go under. Even like people are like, well, why do I need a carb macro if I'm carnivore? It's like, well, there's carbs in liver, scallops, eggs, all the
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah.
So focusing on protein and then using fat as your lever. So as you lose weight, you might need to go up more on the fat because your energy might be bad, because protein is not a good energy source.
Yeah.
And you're not eating carbs because, carbs and fat are your energy source, no carbs. So the fat on your body looks just like the saturated fat if you're eating a stick of butter. Why not let your body be that energy source and that hormonal balance? You don't need to add that. So then as you lose weight, like for me, people are always like, well, what do you eat? I'm like, well, I don't want to tell you because I eat a lot of fat now because that's my energy source.
Right.
But when I was losing weight, it was much difficult where I had to lower that. And the body only needs about 40 grams for hormonal health, gallbladder health, all the
A fat.
things. You don't
Yes.
need 100 and plus
Yeah,
grams.
because it's actually getting way more than those 40 grams that you're getting from your diet. It's getting them from your fat stores. A person who is lean, if you look at them and you're like, they're super lean, even that person has close to 77,000 calories of stored calories in the form of fat, And so once you train the body to access them by switching over to a keto or carnivore diet, then your body learns that it can access them. And so you are actually eating all the fats, only not from your diet. You're burning them off from your frame.
And a lot of people will say like, oh, fat is really satiating. But when you look at what's happening, like GLP-1s are very popular. Those are the peptides people are injecting to stop the hunger.
Yeah.
If you look into what actually acts on the GLP-1 system in your body, it's protein, it's not fat.
Love it.
So those peptides are amino acids, and amino acids come from protein. So man, people, get your protein on.
Yes, I love that. Can you share a little bit about your stance when it comes to those drugs? I haven't had a chance to create a content piece on that, so
You need
it's a
to.
good time to yeah. Let's talk about those weight loss drugs that everybody's on them.
I understand that, some people are in this state of addiction and it's very hard to break. Um, I spoke on the low carb cruise. This was a couple years ago, and my kids were at the pool, and I was sitting by the pool, and this lady just started talking to me. She was really nice, but I I learned a whole bunch about her. Also that she was a drug addict, okay,
Ah.
and how she was getting off of drugs. And she said, you know what the hardest part is? She's like, I don't even really want to do them anymore, but it's the habits. I would wake up, get money to get my fix, to do my fix. And it was like this whole cycle. She's like, I had to figure out what to do with my time. And I
Mhm.
think that's a big part of these whole addictions. You have to find out what to do with your time because you spend so much time eating. If you only eat 2 meals a day now, like what do you do all the other times, right? So I think that's like a huge part of just realizing this whole addictive process, even though maybe you don't want to do it, you just don't know what to do with your time. So you have to find out things that you love, like music or dance.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that you said that. I keep saying that quote, which I don't think I've heard anybody else say it. So I'm gonna say that I originated that. Addiction is untapped potential. That's what it is. And that's when I work with my clients, 90% of the time, we're talking mindset things as opposed to just diet. Because diet and exercise, that's the easy part. It's the mindset that really keeps you sober and keeps you sticking and doing what you're supposed to be doing. And
Right.
yeah, because it's like you're removing all this dopamine stimulation from the drug, but now we're running on empty. You have to substitute that with something better.
That you love to do, so
Yeah.
like one of I won't get into that, but like the whole GLP-1s, I don't think people realize what it's doing to our guts. So this whole like idea of gastroparesis, I don't even think people are addressing, how most people are eating a lot of fruits and vegetables with like glyphosate on it, right?
Yeah.
And that food, when you take a GLP-1, sits in your gut much, much longer than what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then you have all these maybe fruits and vegetables because you think they're super healthy, right?
Yeah.
They sit in your gut and they're causing much more damage than what it would if you didn't have it sitting in there. And then when you have food sitting in your gut long enough, it eats little holes into your intestines. And this is why people like that are taking acid blockers and all the things, their intestines end up looking like Swiss cheese
Yeah.
because that food is sitting in their gut too long. You want stomach acid to digest the food. You do not want it sitting in there long enough.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of downsides that I don't think people realize, it's very
a
expensive,
a
you know.
thousand dollars, right? Yeah. I have
Yeah.
two clients right now. They've been working with me since January and now they're doing great. They literally thought they couldn't lose weight because they've tried everything, and they saw this very famous doctor in Miami and they gave them metformin and pills and stuff. And then that didn't work. So then they gave them the drugs, the injections, and it gave them terrible like burping, constant burping,
Mhm.
bloating. They both had reflux. So guess what happens when you slow down the motility of
It's
your
worse.
digestive tract, right? It's like even worse reflux. And it leads to SIBO and overgrowth of bacteria and candida and things that are not supposed to be overgrowing to that extent. And um, so, so it even doesn't work for everybody, and that's when it was like, okay, well, let's try the carnivore. This is like our last attempt. And they've been losing weight like clockwork
Right.
beautifully, yeah. And
And
they're just so happy and healthy and no more reflux. Isn't that
hair loss and all the things.
right? I mean, just having a better quality of life, no more headaches, none of that stuff. And so I think people aren't, and they told me, uh, that it's, and my students have told me the same thing just this past semester when I was teaching. It's like they are pushing it now. Any clinic you go to, estheticians everywhere, it's like they have those pamphlets advertising that we can get you those drugs. They're
5% of 12-year-olds are on it.
no.
Yeah, they're putting it on children now too.
I think there was some guidelines that came out of, now that you mention it, some guidelines came out from some like major or health organization where they're like looking into as a potential treatment for childhood obesity. Yeah. It's just wild. I mean,
It is,
I'm not against I am not against progress in technology as much as, because I am very passionate about anti-aging, and the more I understand about anti-aging, and I see like maybe at some point we're going to need some gene therapies and things like that to completely reverse aging. So I'm not against technological and pharmacological
me
progress,
neither.
right? But we need a lot of studies and to know that those are safe. And in the case of weight loss, we know there's a safe alternative. It's
Yeah.
easy, it's available, and it's what we ate for 99.99% of our existence as a species here on Earth.
Well, it's so true. And like the whole idea of lowering your hunger when you are not hungry. I remember my little brother, when we would have dinner when we were really young, the dessert would come. We often had dessert and he would want dessert. My mom said, well, you didn't eat your dinner. He goes, well, Mom, I'm hungry for this, but not for that. And that's what happens when you're on them. You're not going to want to eat the steak. You're going to
Right?
want to eat ice cream,
That's true. Because you can
because
only eat very little, so you'd rather just go straight for something that tastes good.
right. But, and again, I'm not against anti-aging. I'm not actually against all peptides, but there are other peptides that are much better that we know the long-term, downsides of, if there's any, and it's usually just the injection site. But like there's something called MOTS-c. Have you ever heard of MOTS-c?
No.
That helps with mitochondrial biogenesis. So like different things to actually help your body and your cells get better. Like that's
Yeah.
I'm all about that. Or like there's one called GHKCU, and that one's really great for your skin and your hair and all the things. It's a peptide you inject, but it's not, I don't know. There's other ways to, I think, get the benefits of health and longevity without,
Without taking drugs that we already know have all these side effects. Like we already, from the amount of studies that we already have on them, clearly they're not safe, right? And you mentioned gastroparesis, which is a paralyzed stomach. Like there are lawsuits right now that they've launched. There are people
no.
already, because they got on the drugs, they now have a paralyzed stomach. It is such a serious condition. You could literally die. I mean, a lot of people die within literally just
Yes.
5 years because you just can't keep anything down. You can't keep any nutrients in
But
your
they're
body.
also keeping those lawsuits down. They're trying to make you not hear about them.
Right.
So, because I mean, think about like Oprah and all of the big
Yeah.
people that are like Weight Watchers.
Yeah.
They actually gave me a cease and assist once.
What?
Weight Watchers. This was before I had children, so maybe 20 years ago. I would have classes about just where sugars come from, and I would teach them because people didn't know that a bagel had more sugar than, or like the McDonald's French fries versus like their milkshake, and like how much sugar is in actual starch, right?
Right.
That's not something people realize. That's going to keep your sugar cravings up. Um, and I would have people come into my home and I would do these classes, and I got a letter afterwards. I just mentioned about four cups of air popcorn becomes, I think, 17 teaspoons of sugar in your bloodstream. And I was referring to the Weight Watcher points because it's only 1 point. And then I got a cease and assist. And I was really scared at first. I'm like, I'm just speaking the truth.
Right. And
You
what
know,
happened? What happened after that?
I stopped, I deleted that slide, but
Right.
then 2 years down I was like, you know what? I'm just speaking the truth. Come and get me, right?
Right. You don't want that they don't want also that kind of attention to them, because if you fight back, then you're standing on more solid ground, because what you're saying is, like you said, it's basic science.
Yeah, I'm not lying. I didn't say that they were off a program. I just said, it was a 1 point and stuff. But
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know, but there's a lot of money behind those companies. So I was scared. And same with like now that they're using Ozempic, you
Yeah.
know, there's a lot of money behind them.
I feel like right now there are so many YouTubers and influencers, and we'll just say the name. And like, if they really want to get after each and every one of us, I mean, I don't know if it's feasible anymore. You can't contain that anymore. Maybe 20 years ago, before YouTube, before social media, it was harder to like bully people or like silence them, you know?
Yeah, there wasn't YouTube then. I remember that because I remember when YouTube first started, I was like, who's gonna watch that? And now I'm like, I should
Right,
have jumped on the bandwagon, right?
right, right, right.
They had all these
Only
recipes.
only Trisha Paytas figured that out. Do you know who Trisha is? She
I
is.
don't.
Oh my God, you should Google her. She was like one of the original YouTubers. She's just like,
Wow.
she's so funny, and she was one of the original YouTubers, and she's very into like the platinum blonde hair and the glitter everywhere, that kind of like girly
Yeah.
girl, you know? But at the same time, like she doesn't care. Like she eats pasta 24/7, and she was like the original person who did the mukbangs where she would eat all of the foods and stuff. I know,
Seriously.
but she's hilarious.
Yeah.
Absolutely, like, yeah, you would die.
All right.
But yeah,
I'll have to ask you that name again once we're done. So I
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So that's awesome. I'm so glad that we got to do this interview. I'm so glad that people can realize that, you know, you and I, we both struggled with weight, and we both reached the same conclusion, and we both coach hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of clients, you know? And so when you see the same things happening over and over again, people, oh, I cannot tell you how many people, almost like most of my clients try this. Like, eat all you want,
Mhm.
don't count calories, you don't need to track, and they gain weight, and then they're stuck there. And now you're at a much higher weight, and now you have to go back through a weight loss episode, which is going to slow down your metabolism, which means you have to reverse diet, and it's a whole thing. So
Harder.
even right, that hurts. Yeah. So um and I'm sure you've probably seen the same thing. So many people maybe come to you because they don't generally gravitate towards the people that are we're telling them do the work, track, you know, that's harder to do. So it's not
They want
our,
the easy way.
yeah, so we all want to try the easy way first. And so I'm sure you've probably seen that same thing. The people that have gained weight and then they're stuck there, and they're blamed. That's the worst thing. It's like, you didn't do it right, you know, something wrong with you. It's like, no.
No, it's not. It's science. And that's the thing. Everybody's like, well, we're all different.
Yeah.
Sure, we are. But when it comes to how we digest food, it's the same. It
Yes.
really, where the fat goes, it's the same. Some people have a, higher metabolic rate and things like that. But I did want to say, so someone yesterday, I have Sunday meetings with people,
Yeah.
and someone on the meeting came from that community where it was all the priming and stuff. And
Gotcha.
they said, well, they claim it's good for people that have food addiction. And I know you specialize in food addiction. And I was like, well, because they don't want to limit anything. And I'm like, well, I'm not limiting anything. I just, I guess maybe I am limiting stuff, but you can't just unlimited. What do you say to that?
No, because if you're consuming tons and tons of butter, remember, fat is one of the five main addictive substances, right? You've got starches, sugars, caffeine, salt, and fat. Those are the five main groups that of addictive food substances. Some could also add, I guess, the casein and the dairy, but mainly it's those five things. And so when you're consuming concentrated sources of fat, especially if it's salted butter, so now you have a combination of high fat, high
Uh,
salt, then it's giving you the same dopamine hits, maybe not to the same extreme, but when you're getting multiple ones throughout the day, it's still activating that dopamine center in your brain. That's addictive behavior still. You're just
that
you're just transferring it to a different one, you know?
makes a lot of sense. Okay, so maybe I should wait until you're on my channel, but what about caffeine? Do you
Yeah,
drink
so
coffee?
caffeine is actually in the DSM-5, like the diagnostic and
I don't drink
statistical
any. I cut it out of my life because I had PCOS, and what causes PCOS? High androgens. What causes high androgens? Caffeine, sugar,
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
things. I had to cut that out.
yeah. The longest I'm gonna go right now. I'm tapering back off. Tomorrow I should be back to like no. I do a plan every time I taper off, so I still have like I'm 2 days away from going back to not having caffeine. But yeah, I've been able to do like 18 months without any caffeine. I did a YouTube video. I was like, yay, I finally did it. And then I went back. It's funny. I went back when we filmed the show. I had like the worst headache leaving Miami on the flight to get to Costa
Um,
Rica. And I'm like, should I take a Midol or should I just ask for black coffee on the plane and use that as a drug? And I kind of like, okay, I should have
yeah.
taken the Midol because then there wouldn't have been the habit of drinking it again, you know?
Again, it's the habit. And some people, I'm like, well, maybe you just want something warm in the morning. It's not the caffeine anymore as you lower it. And they're like, you're right. It was not as bad, but the sleep issues people have, the
Yeah.
anxiety people have, it's just, for me, it was not worth it.
I have a client, I'm putting her on a SIBO protocol, whereby we're taking herbals. It's just such a phenomenal way that I've discovered is even much more powerful than taking rifaximin, which is the antibiotic to kill off, the SIBO, or the bacterial overgrowth. And it's funny, I got her to also get a food marble. Are you familiar with the food marble air? It's like this little device. It's a new thing whereby you blow into it and it measures levels of hydrogen and methane that you excrete. So it tells you if you're eating foods that are highly fermentable and it's causing your symptoms and it's causing SIBO, because for her SIBO is the root cause of her reflux, right? And so we're tackling reflux despite 20 years of seeing all kinds of doctors that are putting her just on antacids and stuff. Nobody wanted to figure out, like, what's the root cause of the reflux. So anyway,
Yeah.
when she drinks coffee, her measures on the food marble are astronomical
Mm,
because it's got fermentable fiber.
yeah. Yeah.
So there are lots of reasons for why it's best not to,
So
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And it's definitely, and like I was saying, in the DSM-5, meaning the DSM-5 is kind of like the Bible for psychiatrists, and they look into it to classify addictive substances. While food addiction is not there yet, caffeine is there because
Good.
people really do develop major addictions to it.
Yeah. I mean, what it does to, again, your gut lining, the blood sugar, it does affect your blood sugar. And this is why when you first drink coffee, your blood sugar goes, or your hunger will go away. You ever notice that where
Yes.
when
And it
you
messes your thirst signals too, by the way.
yeah, your hunger goes away at first, but then it's going to bring your cravings back with a vengeance later. So I don't
And
know. For
and
me, I have more energy without it.
I agree. 1000. I mean, again, like I remember those 18 months when I did not have any coffee. You just forget about it. I feel like after like a few weeks, it's not even an option. And then the more time you have under your belt being completely sober from caffeine, you don't want to break that streak. So I'm gonna do it again.
Get there. Don't worry.
I'll get there. I know it's difficult, not gonna lie, because also I feel like it's not giving me like major symptoms, whereas like with the sugar and the food addiction, I have a much stronger reason to be sober because it affects the way that I look, the way that I feel, everything. It has way more like direct consequences on me.
And it's more socially acceptable. It's a
Yes,
huge community of, you go and have coffee. I know I worked at coffee shops since I was 15. It was a
right.
really hard habit to break, but
True, true. Yeah, that's another thing. The more socialization and peer pressure, and that can be a very major obstacle for some people because it's like in this day and age to be healthy, it's almost like a revolutionary act. You have to go against almost everything everybody else is doing, you
well,
know?
that's why I usually ask, are you an introvert or an extrovert? Because introverts have a much easier time than someone who's an extrovert.
True. Yeah. Yeah, I'm basically home all day long. Like literally, even my gym equipment, I bought a hex bar and weights and stuff. I only really have to go to the gym nowadays, like maybe once or twice, right? And it's like that's pretty much it. And we work online, we see clients online.
I mean, I feel happier on my paddleboard with the humpback whales, or I'm a bow
That's
hunter.
insane when you post those. I was like, oh my God, I'm so scared.
My sister's like, what if you die by like a shark eating you? I was like, well, then I'll be on TV. It's okay. Like, we're all gonna die of something.
But they're so beautiful. I mean, the footage that you put up. Have you heard about this guy that was swallowed by the humpback whale?
What?
Swallowed whole and spit out again. Yeah. You
No,
should
that's
look
like a
that up.
Bible spray.
It's crazy. Yeah, yeah. It's like then the title is like it's like a 1 in a trillion chance of that happening.
Wow. I would totally look that up.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you so much, Maria. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Keep doing the amazing work that you're doing. And, I applaud your courage and your perseverance, relentlessness. And, no matter what the criticism, it's like the bigger you get, the more you shine, the more success you get. It's just inevitable that it's going to trigger some people and they're going to want to be negative instead of realizing and turning inwards, like why do they have this need to go after somebody that's doing the work.
No, I only thank you very much. I only wish that you were coming to Hack Your Health to help me with with
Right.
a
you're
little
gonna
bit.
be
I need someone to help back me up.
You're
But
gonna be there. That's right. Yeah, I pulled out because it's like, I mean, I don't know. We should tell me off camera, but like if they're not even covering like my flight, my everything. Like, why would I go and put out $1,000 or $2,000 out of my own money
no,
for hotels, renting everything to promote my message? If you just take that money, put it into Instagram ads, you already know the return on investment on that. It's like a no-brainer. The moment I realized it,
no.
I'm like, what the
When
what?
you posted
No,
it, I
it's
said,
not going.
Craig, look what she wrote. I was like, because it's pinned to your top of your Instagram.
Yeah,
I'm
I pinned it. Yeah.
like, "Yes." I said, it's brilliant and it's so true. I have a relationship with the person who does it and I really adore her. And because the
Yeah.
thing, I'm speaking on the low carb cruise and I'm going right from there to
Oh,
Hack Your Health. So
gotcha. Yeah.
it's going
No,
to be very,
Robin is great. But I hope, and I wanted to be very transparent so she knows, like if she wants to get more people like me, like that's my main reason why I'm not gonna go. So hopefully as we get more sponsors and she's able to secure more funding, then she can, be able to you know, give us like the at least cover like travel expenses and such. It's gonna happen at some point. I feel like our community is going to keep growing because that's like the direction we're going in. So hopefully it'll happen sooner rather than later.
I hope so too.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you everybody for sticking with us. And where can people find you? Where can people buy your cookbooks and all that kind of stuff?
Well, the easiest thing to do is go to ketomaria.com and you'll find all the things. I have free ebooks on there for people with, meal plans, and there's always macros on all the recipes. But yeah, ketomaria.com, you can find my trips and all the things.
I love it. I'm going to make sure I post all of your contact
Oh,
information in the
thanks.
description box below so people can find you very easily. Again, thank you so much, Maria, and hopefully we'll chat really, really soon again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Bye, everyone.